Most people walked past him every day without looking twice. He was the kind of man the world doesn't notice, not because he wasn't there, but because he didn't ask to be seen. A quiet shadow in a fluorescent vest, pushing a broom through the linoleum maze of Gate C at the Atlanta International Airport. Every morning, 6 days a week, 5:30 a.m. sharp. His name was Samuel Porter. To the outside world, he was a janitor. To himself, he was something else entirely. And if someone had taken the time to really look at him, not just glance, not just nod politely when he opened the door or swept near their shoes, they might have caught it. The way he scanned every corner before entering a room. The way he watched people, not like a man passing time, but like someone taking inventory of lives he wasn't allowed to interrupt. The way he never, ever let anyone touch his backpack. He was tall. Maybe 6'1". Lean but strong. Hair mostly gone, beard trimmed close to his jaw, as if he needed the structure. His skin had the deep lines of someone who'd lived 1,000 small tragedies no one asked him about. And his eyes, light gray, almost colorless, always looked like they were listening to something no one else could hear. People guessed he was in his late 50s. He was actually 63. He hadn't spoken to his daughter in over 18 years. And he wasn't even supposed to be alive. That's where it begins. Not with a gun. Not with a death. Not even with a lie. But with a man sweeping up other people's messes while quietly carrying the weight of a secret that had once made headlines, and then vanished like smoke. It was a Monday when everything started to crack. Terminal C. Gate 32. Heavy rain outside, the kind that blurred everything into gray. Delays flashing red on overhead monitors. People agitated. Impatient. Samuel was doing what he always did, working silently, methodically, like muscle memory had taken over long ago. Trash. Sweep. Disinfect. Repeat. Until he heard it. A voice. Not loud. Not angry. Just familiar. He turned without thinking, broom still in hand, and froze. The man was older now. Thicker in the shoulders. Wearing a suit too expensive for this gate, talking into a headset, gesturing impatiently at the airline desk. But Samuel knew that face. He hadn't seen it in 22 years. Agent Marcus Lang. FBI. Still alive. Still here. And still the only man who knew the truth about what Samuel had done. He turned back around instantly. Too fast. Too tense. Breathe. Just breathe. He moved down the corridor, pushed through the employee door, entered the janitor's supply room and locked it behind him. His hands were shaking. The kind of shake that doesn't come from fear, but from the adrenaline of a life trying to reattach itself to a version of you thought was dead. Why was Marcus here? After all this time. Had they found him? Had the lie finally unraveled? He sank onto the crate in the corner, pulled off his cap, wiped his forehead, closed his eyes. You're still Samuel Porter, he told himself. Just a janitor. No records. No ties. No weapons. No threats. But inside him, something else was waking up. Something he had spent 2 decades burying beneath silence and bleach and routine. The other name. The other man. The one he used to be. The one he had to become again, if only to survive what was coming. He waited in the dark for over 30 minutes, listening to his breath, letting the panic settle like dust. When he finally stepped out, the terminal was quiet again. The man in the suit was gone. Gate 32 was empty. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe his mind was playing games. Maybe he was safe. Maybe. But when he returned to his locker that night, there was an envelope inside. No name. No handwriting. Just a single piece of paper folded once. Inside it were 6 words. You can't run from the truth. Samuel's heart went still. Because that phrase wasn't just a threat. It was a sentence he'd written, once. Over 2 decades ago. The last words he ever said to a man before he disappeared, a man the FBI had spent years looking for. A man Samuel was supposed to have killed. And just like that, the past wasn't the past anymore. It had found him. And this time, it was going to finish what it started. He didn't go home that night. Not to the one-bedroom apartment above the laundromat on Pine Avenue, where the ceiling leaked when it rained and the landlord still didn't know his real last name. Not to the couch where he slept fully clothed, out of habit, as if at any moment someone might knock on the door and say his time was up. Instead, Samuel walked 3 miles. Through quiet neighborhoods where porch lights buzzed and sprinklers ticked across dark lawns. He didn't carry a phone. Didn't carry a wallet. Just a small key on a rusted chain and the note, now folded and hidden deep inside his boot. You can't run from the truth. Whoever left it knew who he was. Not just Samuel Porter, but the man before him. Before the name change. Before the vanishing. Before the event. It was late, maybe 2 in the morning, when he finally stopped in front of a building he hadn't seen in almost a decade. A faded, red brick diner at the edge of the industrial district. Pennies. The neon sign still flickered, though the Y had long since gone dark. He pushed open the door. The bell above it chimed like a relic from another time. And there she was. Marianne. She didn't look surprised. She never did. Thin. Sharp eyes. Hair pulled back into a braid that had streaks of gray now. She didn't wear makeup. Never needed to. Her presence did the talking. You came, she said, not as a greeting, but a statement. I saw someone, he said. I think it was Lang. Her eyes narrowed slightly, the only crack in her armor. After all these years? He was at the airport. Same face. Same walk. He hasn't changed. And the note. He pulled it out. Placed it on the counter between them. She didn't touch it. Anyone else know? Not yet. Marianne exhaled slowly, wiped her hands on a dish towel, then poured him a cup of coffee without asking. She knew the ritual. Black. No sugar. Burned. You think it's him? She asked. Lang. He shook his head. Too clean. This isn't his style. She nodded. Then it's someone else, she said. Someone who knows what happened. Samuel looked around the diner. It was empty, just like it always was after midnight. She kept it open anyway, said the ghosts ate for free after dark. You said you burned everything, he said, his voice low. I did. Are you sure? Marianne stared at him. Then, with deliberate calm, she reached under the counter and pulled out a shoebox wrapped in twine. He felt it before she opened it. The weight. The memory. Inside were only 2 things. A photo. And a badge. The photo was from 1998. 4 men. Standing in front of a black SUV. Smiling, but not casually, like they'd just pulled something off. One of them was Samuel. Younger. Cleaner. Wearing a suit that didn't fit quite right. The others were all gone now. Disappeared. One buried under a different name. One presumed dead. One really dead. And the badge. It was his. Before everything went wrong. Before the sting operation in Miami. Before the betrayal. Before the shot that didn't kill, but should have. He stared at it like it might catch fire if he looked too long. Why do you still have this? He asked. Marianne didn't answer. Because they both knew. Because some truths don't die. They just wait. You need to leave, she said finally. Tonight. Change cities. New job. Don't tell me where. Don't tell anyone. I can't run again. You have to. If Lang's alive and someone else knows what happened. No, he cut her off. I'm tired of running. And if they've come this far, they won't stop. Marianne stepped back. Then what are you going to do? He picked up the badge. Felt its cold metal edge press into his palm. I'm going to finish it. Her eyes flickered. You can't bring them back. I'm not trying to. Then what? Samuel looked out the window. Rain again. Always rain. I'm going to find out who still remembers, he said. And why they want me alive. Because the most dangerous thing wasn't that someone had found him. It was that they hadn't come to kill him. They had come to activate him. And the question that haunted him now wasn't what they knew. It was what they were planning to do with it. He went back to the airport. Not to work. Not anymore, but to observe. To watch the place from the outside, as if looking at a life he'd already started shedding like old skin. He parked across the street in the corner of a lot where the security lights didn't quite reach. Sat in a borrowed car with tinted windows and a stale energy drink wedged in the console. He watched the people come and go. The shift changes. The routines. And he waited. Because if the note in his locker had been left there by someone who knew his schedule, his routes, his locker code, that meant they had access. That meant they had already breached the space he thought was safe. And if they'd done that, they'd be back. At 3:17 in the morning, he saw him. Not Lang. Someone younger. Wearing a janitor's badge. Uniform crisp. Clipboard in hand. Too crisp. No real janitor walked like that. No real janitor checked empty lockers at 3 a.m. Samuel watched through the binoculars. The man opened locker 42, Samuel's. Of course it was empty. Then the man looked up at the camera in the hallway. And smiled. Samuel's blood turned cold. That smile wasn't meant for security. It was meant for him. He was being watched. But more than that, he was being challenged. Someone wanted him to see, to know, to follow. Which meant this wasn't about revenge. It was a message. An invitation. He pulled out the burner phone and texted Marianne. They made contact again. Not Lang. Someone new. Seconds later, do not engage. You're not ready. He didn't respond. Because the truth was, he'd never be ready. He hadn't touched a gun in 19 years. Hadn't made a drop, passed a code, or shadowed a subject since the night it all went wrong. Since he watched a man vanish into the Everglades with a briefcase full of secrets and a bullet in his shoulder. A bullet Samuel fired. But if that man hadn't died, then none of it was finished. And if that man was still out there, then someone was preparing to finish the mission without him. The next day, Samuel went to a storage unit under a fake name he hadn't spoken aloud in over a decade, Wesley Kane. It was the name the agency gave him when he was inserted into Operation Fallpoint. The name of a man who never really existed. Inside the storage unit was a case. Thin. Steel. Locked with 2 codes and a thumbprint scanner he wasn't sure would still recognize him. It did. Inside, exactly what he expected. A Beretta 92. 2 mags. A sealed envelope marked Alpha 6. A pair of burner phones. A list of numbers he hadn't dialed since the turn of the century. A key to a safe house in Columbus. He didn't touch the gun. Not yet. He opened the envelope. Inside was a photo. Grainy. Satellite print. A face circled in red. Lang. But not from the past. From now. His face had changed, but the eyes hadn't. The coordinates attached to the photo were a hotel in D.C. Check-in date, 2 days ago. Samuel sat on the edge of the unit, holding the photo like it might bite. So Lang wasn't dead. But he also wasn't hiding. Which meant he was working with whoever had found Samuel. But why? Why expose him now? Why wait this long? Unless it wasn't about the past at all. It was about what Samuel still knew. There had been files. Names. Codes embedded in a briefcase that was never recovered. Coordinates. Insurance. And if someone believed Samuel still had access to that data, or knew where it went, they'd want him alive. But for how long? That night, he called one of the numbers on the list. It rang 7 times. Then a voice. Low. Scrambled. Identify. Samuel's voice barely trembled. Kane. Alpha 6. Clearance Fragline 3. Pause. Status. Compromised. Long silence. Then, do not proceed to Columbus. Extraction no longer secure. Click. Gone. He sat in the silence of the storage unit, heart pounding. He had no backup, no network, no home, but he had the truth. And that, more than any weapon, was why they were coming. Because they didn't want justice. They wanted silence. And Samuel Porter, or whatever was left of Wesley Kane, had one choice left to make. Disappear again. Or make everyone else visible. Columbus was gone. Burned. Compromised. Whatever had once made it a safe house had been stripped clean, and that left only one direction, forward. Samuel had stopped sleeping in beds. He moved every night now. Buses, train stations, alleys behind places where the cameras didn't work. He shaved the beard. Bought cheap clothes from a donation bin. Kept moving. Not to hide. To see who was following. And they were. Subtle at first. The same car parked across from 2 different motels. The same man buying coffee in 3 cities. A woman in a gray coat who always arrived 5 minutes after he did, but never seemed to be ordering anything. They weren't FBI. They didn't blink like law enforcement. They moved like contractors. That made it worse. Because if someone had taken Fallpoint's remnants and sold them off, that meant there was a new buyer. One with reach, money, and time. Samuel stopped in Philadelphia. Marianne had sent an encrypted message through a signal relay. Asset is breathing again. You'll know him by the walk. That was all she said. It was more than enough. The asset. It had to be Lang. But why would he resurface now, after decades of silence? Unless Lang had never left the operation. Unless Fallpoint had never really ended. He waited near the train station where the signal was traced. And just past 10 a.m., in the middle of the pedestrian crowd, he saw him. Same gait. Same posture. Slower but not weak. Lang wore a dark peacoat, scarf tucked too neatly, eyes scanning like radar. Samuel followed. 2 blocks. Then Lang turned. I knew it'd be you, he said. Calm. No surprise. No panic. Samuel said nothing. You shouldn't be here, Lang said. You shouldn't exist anymore. Neither should you, Samuel replied. Lang smiled. Difference is, I never pretended. They stood across from each other like old statues finally given permission to move again. What do they want? Samuel asked. Lang's smile faded. They want the map. Samuel blinked. It doesn't exist. They think it does. I burned it. I know. But they don't believe that, Lang said, finishing the thought for him. Samuel looked past him, scanning rooftops, alley lines, windows. You working with them? No, Lang said. I'm trying to stay alive. Then why leave the note? I didn't, Lang said. They did. That stopped him. Lang stepped closer. They're not after what you think. It's not just about Fallpoint. It's what came after. What it evolved into. You weren't just a ghost, Samuel. You were a template. A chill ran through his spine. Template for what? Disappearing people. Rewriting identities. Taking operatives and turning them into phantoms. You mean assets? No, Lang said. I mean products. And just like that, everything Samuel thought he understood, about the operation, the files, even his own vanishing, tilted. You're telling me they're still running it? Not they, Lang said. It. The system doesn't need people anymore. It just needs patterns. And you're one of them. Then why not kill me? Lang looked straight into his eyes. Because you're the only one who can prove it exists. Silence. Everything else around them blurred. Traffic. Noise. People. City. None of it mattered now. Samuel had spent 20 years trying to forget. But the system hadn't forgotten him. And now, it wasn't trying to kill him. It was trying to use him. Lang reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a flash drive. 12 names, he said. All ghosts. All like you. He handed it to Samuel. And then stepped back into the crowd. Gone again. Just like that. Samuel held the drive in his palm like it might crack open time itself. 12 names. 12 lives. 12 stories like his. He wasn't alone. Not anymore. But if that was true, it also meant that whatever had started back then in Fallpoint was now much bigger. And whatever was coming, it was already in motion. The flash drive wasn't encrypted. That was the first surprise. No passwords. No firewalls. Just a plain folder titled 12. Inside, dossiers. Not full files. Just enough to mark that someone, somewhere, had been watching them, maybe for years. Each folder bore a name. Not code names. Real names. Or at least, names someone believed were real. Milo Hayes. Emma Darrow. Benjamin Leake. Ariana Holt. Tomas Ibarra. Cameron Lee. Wallace Dent. And then, 7th down the list. Wesley Kane. Samuel hesitated before opening that one. The photos were old, most of them from the 90s or early 2000s. Scanned driver's licenses. Surveillance images. Memos. But one file stood out. A woman. Folder name, E. Kane. He clicked it. The photo was blurry. Grainy security footage, probably at least 20 years old. But there was no mistaking it. It was his daughter, Emily. Her hair was longer. She was thinner. And the timestamp, Los Angeles. A month ago. Samuel dropped the laptop. Not because of the image. Because of what it meant. Emily was alive. And someone had been tracking her. Not just tracking, documenting. A series of photos followed: coffee shop, bookstore, apartment building. Someone had been building a profile. But it wasn't law enforcement. No agency would log this quietly, this cleanly. No dates on the metadata. No location tags. No official markings. This wasn't surveillance. It was inventory. He sat back, hands shaking. 20 years of silence. 20 years of believing she hated him. That she'd erased him like he'd erased himself. That it was better she never knew what he'd done. Who he was. What he'd cost her. But now, she was back in play. Which meant one thing. She wasn't just a person. She was a lever. Someone, or something, wanted to move Samuel again. And she was the pressure point. He reached for the burner phone. Typed one word to Marianne. Emily. No reply. He tried again. They found her. This time, the screen flashed with a response. Get out. Now. But he didn't. He printed the photos. Burned the rest of the flash drive. Wiped the drive with bleach software. Crushed it under his boot. And bought a bus ticket to LA. He didn't fly. Not anymore. Too many eyes in the sky. The ride took over 20 hours. Through cracked windows, dry highway landscapes blurred into memories he couldn't name anymore. He barely ate. Slept in flashes. Kept his hand on the envelope of photos like it was a living thing. He arrived at dawn. The city hadn't changed, but he had. The address was in Echo Park. Modest building. Ivy on the side. A mailbox marked with a taped name tag. E. Kane. He didn't go in. He waited across the street. Watched. And at 7:23, she walked out. Coffee in one hand. Jacket half-zipped. Her hair pulled back in a bun just like her mother used to wear it. Samuel's breath caught in his throat. She looked so much like her. And nothing like her. He didn't follow. Not yet. Because something told him he wasn't the only one watching. He scanned the street. Third car down. Dark sedan. Too clean. Fog on the inside windshield. Someone had been sitting in it a while. He moved casually, like a man going nowhere. Circled around the block. Approached the car from the rear. Peeked through the side mirror. No one inside. But there was a camera on the dashboard. And a recorder on the seat. They were logging her. Just like before. Samuel didn't hesitate. He broke the window with his elbow, grabbed the gear, and walked 3 blocks before dumping it in a dumpster behind a Thai restaurant. And just like that, the rules changed again. They were closer than he thought. And if he didn't act now, Emily would vanish into the same silence that had swallowed so many others. He had no plan. Only blood. Only memory. Only the old name burning again inside him like fire in bone. Wesley Kane wasn't just back. He was awake. And this time, he wasn't going to run. He watched her from across the street for hours. She didn't notice. She never looked over her shoulder. Emily moved like someone who'd spent her whole life believing she was ordinary. Like someone who never imagined her name might live inside a classified database or end up as leverage in an operation older than her memories. Samuel envied that. And feared it. Because he knew what innocence looked like right before it disappeared. That evening, he made a decision. No more distance. He crossed the street at dusk. Hoodie up. Hands in pockets. Every step calculated, every heartbeat like a countdown. She was unlocking the front door when he called her name, not loudly, just enough to catch her in the moment before the lock clicked. Emily. She turned. Confused. Then defensive. "Do I know you?" she asked, gripping her keys tighter. Samuel stepped into the light. Her eyes narrowed. Something flickered behind them. Recognition? Maybe. A buried memory? Or just the feeling that something was off? "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "But they're watching you. Right now." She didn't move. "What are you talking about?" "There's a black sedan that's been on this block for 3 days," he said. "The windows are fogged because the engine's off, but there's always someone inside. They're logging your movements. Your patterns. Your conversations." She shook her head. "Who are you?" "I'm someone you used to know." He pulled the envelope from his pocket. Handed it to her. Photos. Surveillance stills. Maps. Her name circled in red. She opened it slowly. And when she looked up again, her face was pale. "What is this?" "Insurance," he said. "Against me." She stared at him. "You're the reason they're following me." It wasn't a question. Samuel nodded once. "Yes." She looked like she wanted to slap him. "Who are you?" "I was part of something. A long time ago. Something buried." "That doesn't answer anything." "I'm your father." The words felt like gravel coming out of his throat. She didn't blink. Just stared. "No," she said. "My father died in a car crash. When I was 6. He looked down. "That's what they told you." "It wasn't a crash. It was a cover-up. I disappeared to protect you." "Protect me from what?" Samuel looked up at the sky. No stars. Only streetlights and the weight of history pressing against his chest. "From the system I helped build." He turned, started walking. But she called after him. "Wait." He stopped. She walked up slowly. Eyes sharp now. Familiar. Too familiar. "If you're really him, tell me something no one else would know." He took a breath. "When you were 4, he said, you had a yellow bear. You used to hide cereal inside its back because you thought it was hungry at night. Your mom used to get mad because ants would show up in the crib." Emily froze. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't let the tears fall. She just nodded. Once. Then asked, "Why now?" "Because they're circling again. Because I thought I could outrun it." And because if I don't finish what I started, you'll be next. She looked away. The night felt heavier now. How much danger am I in? Enough, he said. But I can fix it. I just need time. And one thing. What? He looked at her fully now, and for the first time in decades, there was no alias behind his eyes. Your trust. She hesitated, then handed him the envelope. Then you'll need this more than I do. He took it, held her gaze, and in that moment, father and daughter stood in the middle of a war neither of them had chosen, but both were already losing. The next morning, the black sedan was gone. But Samuel knew better. They weren't retreating. They were repositioning. And whatever came next wouldn't be surveillance. It would be removal. Because now they knew he wasn't just back. He had something they didn't. A witness. He didn't sleep the night after she looked him in the eye and said, I believe you. Not because he was afraid. Because he finally understood what had to be done. He couldn't hide anymore. Couldn't run. Couldn't pull Emily into the shadows with him and pretend that a new name, a new town, a new haircut would erase what he'd built, or what they were willing to destroy to keep quiet. The only way to survive now was to make everything visible. He didn't tell her the details. Only that he needed one day, one night. And after that, she'd never have to run again. She handed him a flash drive, her laptop, some camera footage, a few of the files he'd given her. Whatever this is, she said, don't do it alone. He kissed her forehead. Not like a father. Like a man who knew this was the last goodbye he'd be allowed. That night, he walked into a quiet office complex outside San Bernardino, half abandoned, half forgotten. Inside, a man waited in a windowless room surrounded by hard drives and fans that buzzed like angry wasps. His name was Khalil. They'd crossed paths once, years ago, in a forgotten alley in Venezuela where the price of silence was always higher than expected. Now, Khalil was a ghost for hire. The kind of man who could push a button and make the truth reach millions before anyone could stop it. You sure about this? Khalil asked. Samuel placed the drive on the table. I'm done hiding. Khalil nodded, slid the drive into the port, and began the transfer. What's in here? Names. Proof. Movement logs. Photos. Audio. Surveillance from Echo Park. Footage from the airport. Codes embedded in fallpoint protocols. Every thread I could pull from the inside. Khalil raised an eyebrow. That's a suicide note, you know. It's a confession, Samuel said. And a warning. It took 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes to undo 20 years of silence. When the upload was done, Khalil hit a sequence of keys and the data dispersed, encrypted into clouds, embedded into burner sites, mirrored into whistleblower networks, leak platforms, private press. By the time anyone noticed, it would already be too late to kill it. Samuel stood. Where are you going? Khalil asked. To make sure they know it was me. Why? Because if they're going to come for someone, Samuel said, walking toward the door, they don't get to come for her. He made the call on a payphone in the corner of an abandoned truck stop. No encryption. No masking. Just a voice. Tell Lang it's done, he said. Tell them the system's broken. And if they're going to clean up, they better start with me. No answer. No threat. Just the line going dead. By dawn, it had begun. The story broke first on a fringe site no one took seriously, until they did. Then it hit a podcast. Then a newswire. By the time the first video clip surfaced, grainy footage of the black sedan circling Emily's building, the internet had already started to burn. The story was impossible to contain. Anonymous former intelligence agent exposes decades-old black operations involving identity erasure, surveillance of civilians, and psychological control protocols rooted in post-Cold War systems. The details were too deep to fake, too wild to invent, too real to ignore. But Samuel never saw the headlines. By the time the sun was up, he was gone. No note. No body. No trace. Some say he crossed the border that night. Others say he walked into the desert and let the past take him. Emily never confirmed either version. She just kept living. Unfollowed. Untouched. Free. But sometimes on quiet nights, she still finds old flash drives tucked behind bookshelves, or coded messages buried inside system logs. Pieces of him, scattered like breadcrumbs. Not because he wants to be found, but because he wants her to know one thing. He didn't disappear. He chose to protect her. To finish the job. To prove that even the quietest man in the room can change everything if he decides to stop surviving and start revealing. And somewhere, in the bones of the system he exposed, there's still a line of code written in a forgotten language. It says, Kane lives. If you liked this story, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.